Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar this morning. This is Getting Ready for Year-End in Dynamics GP. Today, our agenda is, we'll start with introductions, and then we will review the Dynamics GP lifecycle and roadmap. We'll discuss migrating to the cloud. We will review the GP year-end update and the new features, and we will also review the GP year-end process. This is your Quisitive ERP team. Today, your presenter is Jeff Bonasek. Jeff Bonasek is our Principal Solutions Architect here at Quisitive. Jeff has over 30 years of experience working with ERP systems and is certified in Dynamics GP, Dynamics SL, Business Central, Sage Intacct, and Uninet. Your customer account managers are myself, Michelle Chesser, Marian Hartka, and Angela Gillis. Some housekeeping items. During the presentation, you will be in listen-only mode, but you can ask questions or ask for assistance in the questions or chat box on your GoToMeeting menu. Please feel free to enter questions throughout the presentation, and then at the end, we will have time for some Q&A. And we will also be recording the webinar today and sending the link to you along with a copy of this presentation afterwards. And now, without further ado, I will turn this over to Jeff. Jeff, you can take it away.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all doing well today. And welcome to our year-end readiness for GP 2023. Let's jump right into it and start with the GP lifecycle. So as many of you are aware of, GP is now in what it's called its modern lifecycle. So as GP goes through its eventual sunsetting, which is definitely down the road, so it's not going to happen immediately. GP requires you now to be in 2018 R3 or better, which is 2018.6 or better for year-end updates. And it is only those versions of GP that are going to receive updates for year-end and any other updates from this point forward. Now, this is a picture of the roadmap that Microsoft has put out there for GP. It is important to note that the intention is to support the product through 2028 and beyond. They haven't defined a specific life end. But clearly, their energies are focused on the next generation products, which are all cloud-based products. So you want to make sure that you're on the latest version of GP on the modern lifecycle so that you can take advantage of any new updates that come out, and then also any year-end updates that may happen. Speaking of what your next options are, cloud options, many of our clients are looking at two different options, moving either from Microsoft Dynamics GP or Microsoft Dynamics SL. These are what we call our classic products. And the two products that they're looking at, one is a Microsoft product called Microsoft Business Central, and the other is a Sage product called Sage Intacct. Let's drill into these just a little bit more to understand them a little better. So Business Central is Microsoft's cloud-only solution, meaning it's deployed out only via the cloud. It sits inside of Microsoft's environment. Read that as Microsoft Office, as well as the other ancillary tools that come in that environment. It is driven off of an account and a dimensional structure. It has a number of reporting tools available to it. They're very successful for our clients. And it uses the Microsoft environment, which includes things like Power BI. If that's a tool you're using right now, that's inside of the Microsoft environment Office. Or environment, excuse me, but also artificial intelligence, Power Apps, Microsoft Flow, integrating into Microsoft CRM is really its strengths. So if you're considering moving to the cloud, we think you should take a look at Business Central as a potential solution for the next generation product for you. Looking at an alternative product, Sage Intacct. Sage is a cloud-only solution. It's been around since 2000. Sage Intacct has. We've been representing it for about 15 years here at Quisitive. Its strengths are multi-tenant environments, so there's organizations that have multiple entities that they're managing and want the ability to share information between those entities. Sage is very strong in that. It has a similar dimensional reporting structure as does Business Central, in that it's built upon charts of accounts and dimensions that push all the way down to the general ledger that then allow you to produce financial reports from those dimensions. And it also has very strong dashboard capability and financial report writing tool as well. So its tenants are best in class. It has a series of APIs that allow other applications, third-party applications, to be able to integrate into it and to be able to live in the greater ecosystem. Of course, both of these solutions being cloud-based solutions, you move to a subscription model in which you pay an annual fee for the feature functionality and number of users that you want. And then the manufacturer, their responsibility is all the back end, keeping the environment up and running, doing the updates to the system, which happen automatically, and ensuring that you get the latest feature functionality like AP automation. And that's really the process of being able to read an AP bill and have the accounting system generate an AP bill for you to review, looking at the history of the activity done by that vendor to try to code it appropriately. And so that these new feature functionalities are all handled by the manufacturer, and that's what's handled in the subscription model. Not sure about what is the right way to go? Well, that's what we're here for. So we are experts in GP. We are experts in Business Central. We're also experts inside of Sage Intacct. And so we are ideally positioned to help you understand feature functionality of those two different products and help you decide which one is the best fit for you. We also are in a good position to help you migrate because we know where your data is inside of GP and the best way to convert it into the new systems, taking full advantage of it. So just some food for thought to think about what your next steps are. Let's now move on into year-end updates. Okay, so year-end updates for 2023. First thing to let you know is that there are no changes to the 1099 form for this particular year, which is nice. There are some changes that GP has included to the paper-based 1099s they produce. We'll touch over that. There are changes to the 1096 form, which is that summary form that comes out at the end of it. And then there are no changes to any of the payroll forms for 2023. So this year, less of an impact on the changes. You must be on GP 2018-6 or higher to get these updates. They only provided for that. And that means that you need to upgrade your system, reach out to our team as soon as possible so we can get you scheduled and on the books in time to be able to get the updates done and in place for you. So let's drill a little deeper into that. So 1099 changes for 2023. The forms itself did not change. What is interesting now is that GP is now producing those forms in white paper. So no longer do you need to go out to Staples, Office Max, or order online your 1099 forms. You can print directly on white paper and send them out as is. So it does the entire overlay, all the boxes, and so on and so forth. For 2023, however, there is a change from the Taxpayer First Act that requires you filing with the federal government an electronic file if you send out any more than 10 either W-2s or 1099s. So essentially that means almost all of our customers now are forced with creating an electronic file. Now GP does not produce that electronic file for you. So what are your options? So GP analyzed the marketplace. Microsoft decided that there are plenty of third-party products out there that are available for you to use at a fairly low cost. And what we'll do is we'll offer up smart lists to be able to extract the data you need out of GP to produce 1099s in the 1099 file. And here are just a listing of some of the products that are out there. Now you all have a chance to get to this PowerPoint so you can download and investigate these, but at a fairly minimal cost. Read that as less than $200, some of these even less than $100. You have the ability to upload your 1099 information to be able to produce a file from these online systems. And that's Microsoft's approach on how they deal with electronic filing from this point forward. There are a couple of updates with this release. Just as in last year, when you are producing paper-based 1099s, it is imperative that you choose the 1099 year when you run the report. So you do have the choice of choosing multiple years and then the form type as well. And each of these forms are supported. In addition to that, there was a request that when a vendor is being set up as a 1099 candidate and that a tax type was chosen, that the default box appropriate to that tax type should be set. And this new release includes that. So no more is it a generic box that's set up, but rather more than likely the default value is there. So you can just tab over that field or just confirm that. For the updates on the 1096 summary form, there are some boxes that have been rearranged, and that has all been taken care of in this update from GP. Those are all listed right here for you to see. There's a full listing of what's new in the October release. This release did come out October 1st, and it can be found at this website, which again, you'll get a copy of this PowerPoint to review. And it covers the ones that I touched on with respect to year-end processing, and then also any new feature functionality that's come out with it. So let's talk a little bit about the year-end process and what one needs to do to go through year-end process. This is a review of the process and some information to help guide you through that year-end process. And we're going to start with inventory. So if you are running inventory, when do you need to do the year-end closer inventory? Well, before you do any new transactions in the next year, year, 2024, is the best time to do so. What should be done? What are the steps to doing that year-end close? Well, the first is to complete all the processing of transactions that would flow through inventory. So this would include purchase orders, any sales orders, any inventory transactions and receipts that you might necessarily need to do. Sort of obvious, but make sure you complete all that processing before you close inventory for year end. You'll want to go and do a reconciliation of the inventory quantities, which might include completing a physical so you can adjust your counts and your valuation for year end. As with any close process in GP, you always want to make a backup before you do so. And then you go ahead and close the year for inventory. And then finally, you can close the fiscal periods, which will prevent people from being able to post into inventory back in that previous year, really keeping them out from posting at all to inventory in the historical year. These steps are detailed in online. Microsoft founded this website, in which it gives you a step-by-step guide through each one of these steps and processes. So key points to remember: make sure you do backups as always before your year-end closing. Make sure you complete all processes related to inventory or that would affect inventory balances or amounts. And then reconcile those subledgers, sales order processing, purchase order processing, and then reconcile inventory and close. Moving on to receivables management. There are two processes in receivable management. One is a year-end close, the other is a fiscal year-end close. So should your year-end not be a calendar year-end, then you would do the fiscal year-end close at the end of your fiscal year and your year-end close at the end of the calendar year. So for the calendar year-end close, the steps are: post all activity associated with accounts receivable. That includes sales activities, sales order processing, post all those invoices that you may do, and then complete all your processing for receivables management module. So any transactions you have for year-end, any cash receipts you need to do, complete those entire processes. Make a backup prior to close, then go ahead and close the year. And this is closing it independently of general ledger. Then close the fiscal periods. Again, this is like inventory in that it's preventing anybody from posting any activity into those years. Close the tax year for the calendar year, and then make a backup of that should you need to roll back that for whatever reason. These steps are again detailed on a website, Microsoft's website, and can be found at this URL. Moving on to payables management. Payables management too, like receivables, kind of the bookend to receivable, has both a calendar year end and a fiscal year end close. For the calendar year end, there's certain routines we need to do. And then for the fiscal year end, if that should be different than the calendar year end, there's some routines we can do there as well. Now with the payables, it all comes together into one set of steps, which is number one, whether it's either a calendar year or a fiscal year end. For the calendar year end, excuse me, what you'll want to do is post all the transactions for the year. You'll want to print your aged trial balance with options report and keep that historically. Again, as always, make a backup before you do the close. and this is before your 1099 reports. You want to verify the 1099 information and edit if it's required. So this typically means running reports from your vendors to ensure that all the transactions were coded appropriately to the right 1099 type and boxes. And if any adjustments need to be done, doing so inside the vendor record itself. You want to, after completing all those changes, make a backup of the system, and then go ahead and close the year, close the fiscal periods, close the tax year, and then make a backup. Now, looks like I skipped a step there, and that you want to print the 1099 statements, of course, and of course generate that electronic file, which the federal government is requiring this year as well. Again, these steps are all covered in this URL, which you can find online at any time. The fiscal year end, which does not necessarily, in this case, is expected if it's not a calendar year end, you don't have any 1099 issues to deal with. So this is just a closing the fiscal year. You want to make sure you post all the fiscal year activity. You want to make sure you print your vendor period analysis report as of that time at the end of your fiscal year. Make a backup as always, and then close the fiscal year, and then close those fiscal periods to prevent anybody from posting back to them. And then once that's complete and done, do one more backup and save that as your post year end close. These steps again are detailed on the Microsoft website. Fixed assets. You may see there's a theme here. We're closing all the subledgers first before we get to our general ledger, and just moving our way down there. So fixed assets, when should we do it? We should do this really after we've closed the payable subledger and before we close the general ledger. Payables generally feeds fixed assets. So new acquisitions can start in payables first and then flow into the fixed assets module. And we want to make sure we close payables first so that we won't flow any new fixed assets in for the year that we're trying to close. Each book can be closed separately, but all books must be closed before you do the any processing in the new year for fixed assets. What steps do I need to do? So do all the year-end closing procedures for payables that previously listed before, and make sure that you've got your payables module closed for that year-end. Enter all the fixed assets transactions for the current fiscal year. So any new transactions, any new depreciations need to be calculated off of purchases made in this last year. You want to make sure they're all done. And then you want to depreciate those assets through the end of the fiscal year. And then you want to post any of the accumulated depreciation that needs to be posted for that last month of the year. Run any year-end reports that you want to keep as a part of year-end closing. And then guarantee that your fixed asset calendar is correctly built for the next incoming years. You also want to verify that your quarters are set up correctly for the next coming years. Then make a backup, and then do the fixed assets year-end closing routine. Again, this is covered under a bulletin through the website that you can find listed right here. Now we finally got to our general ledger close. So again, the idea is we want to close all the subledgers first before we get to the general ledger closing. And so when is the best time to close the general ledger? Well, of course, the best time to do it is after you close all the subledgers, including inventory, receivables, payables, and fixed assets. But you want to do this after you complete each of those modules. So what are the steps for closing general ledger? They include completing the posting of all those other modules, posting the final adjusting entries that you will do in general ledger, printing an account list to verify the posting types of each one of those accounts, to determine how they're going to post, close the last period of the fiscal year, prevent anybody from posting any anything else, do any file maintenance for the series group of modules. So if you need to do any changes to your setups and configurations, you want to do those in this interim of the closing process itself, so that it inherits, takes effects the next year. Verify the settings in general ledger setup are correct, make one more backup, and then print the final detailed trial balance report and store that in a safe place. and then print the year-end financial statements, which we expect you to do at the end of any year. Ensure that the new fiscal year is set up properly, and then close the fiscal year, and then close all the fiscal periods for the series in that year, closing that entire year. Make sure you do any adjustments to the budget figures for the new years, and then print your financial statements, and then make a backup after you've done the general ledger closing. So important things to remember. We've said this several times. Before you do any closing, make backups before. This is in the unlikely event that you run into an error along the way, that you have the option to restore prior to the year-end close to be able to resolve the issue and then complete the close process again. Make sure all your users are out of Dynamics GP when you do that general ledger closing. You don't want anybody posting or in the process of trying to post. And do keep in mind that we do see sometimes that the year-end process appears to hang. What it is doing, of course, is updating all those accounts and all those activities, building history files, and that can take quite some time. So if it appears to be hanging at 50%, it's okay, let it sit, let it run. It should run and complete itself in a reasonable amount of time. It's not going to take days, but it should complete itself in a reasonable amount of time. And that's really all based upon the size of your databases, the number of activities you have, on how long it will take to do that process. Let's talk a little bit about payroll. For any of our customers that are running payroll, either US or Canada, we have two different options. For US, some things to know: the year-end update were delivered in November, and so those can be found on the Microsoft site. You can also reach out to our team and we can help you install those updates to get you prepared. Definitely want to make sure you have your year-end updates installed before you go through the process of running your first payroll for next year. The tax updates for 2024, the first round came out, or excuse me, are expected to come out December 20th of 2023. There are expected to be a second round of updates to come out in mid-January as well. And so keep an eye out for those and apply those as soon as they're available and come out. When do you run the payroll year-end close? Well, of course, after all current year pay runs are complete. And of course, we want to make sure that we make a backup before doing the year-end close for payroll. And finally, we want to make sure that we do a year-end close before we do any processing for the next year, 2024. Here are the steps for the close, US payroll. So verify that you've installed the latest 2023 payroll tax updates. You should have already done these throughout the year, but this is a check step to make sure that they are done. Complete any pay runs for the current year through 2023. Complete all month-end, period-end, quarter-end procedures for the current year. Make a backup, just as in most cases. And then install the 2023 year-end updates. That's the updates that came out in October, November. Create your year-end file. Make a backup of that new file. And then verify your W-2 and 1099 statement information and make any adjustments that you need to in the employee record. You also optionally can run a process to archive any inactive employees and human resource information. You want to make sure that you've set up your fiscal periods for 2024 and that you close your fiscal periods for 2023 so that no more payroll processing can take place. You then want to install the payroll tax updates, the one we're expecting in December through 2024. You want to process your final 2023 pay runs and then print your W-2 statements and your W-3 transmittals. Print any 1099 ORs, 1099Rs, or 1096 transmittal form or ACA forms that you need to, and then create that W-2 electronic file. So the important thing to remember is a year-end wage file report that you generate that you print your W-2s and you create your electronic files. Prior to processing your first payroll in the new year, make sure you've installed tax update round number 1. Now these steps are covered again in the year-end closing checklist with the URL provided here. And also where you can download those tax tables are provided here. as well. So you can gather these online and download them. Also, our team can help you install these. So reach out to your customer account manager if you have any questions or would like to have our team help with the installation. For our Canadian customers, the Canadian year-end updates are also expected out in late December. December 22nd is the target for that. The 2023 year-end update includes updates to the ROE serial number, the record serial numbers, and then also the CPP and QPP contribution updates. And the reporting benefits boxes for the T4 form have been updated as well. Year-end updates will be all-inclusive updates and include any prior service packs or hot fixes. So it'll all be bundled together with this. And make arrangements in assisting by reaching out to our Canadian customer account manager, Angela, at her email address listed here as well. You can also find at ask@quisitive.com. So the Canadian payroll year-end closing process, you should complete all the pay runs for the current year, complete any necessary 2023 payroll reports. As always, make a backup, install that Canadian year-end update, complete the year-end file reset process, and then make another backup after you've done that reset. What steps continued? Create the T4s, the RL statement, and then edit any T4 or RL records necessary to get it adjusted properly. Create your summary records, print the T4s and the RLs appropriately, and then verify the pay periods for 2024 or set correctly. There are some helpful documents that we've included in this PowerPoint. So again, you can go online and find all the details, step-by-step procedures on how to do the closing of any one of these modules. And for payroll, you'll find it here at the payroll year-end closing checklist. And also, this is where you can download tax updates. This is all based for the Canadian payroll, should you have Canadian payroll. There are some other helpful links that you can find out on the Microsoft forum, including blog posts for year-end processes. These links are provided also in this document, so you should be able to link to them and then do any research of activities that happen with year-end processing. Again, don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions. We're here to help support that process. So that completes our review of the year-end closing steps and the updates that have come out for 2023. At this time, we're going to take some questions from the audience. Michelle, can you review our process for taking questions?
Yes, thank you, Jeff. So just a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, if you can please enter it into the questions area of the GoToWebinar menu, and we will get those answered now. And we do have a few, Jeff, that have come in. Let's see, the first one is, can you close a year in Dynamics GP more than once? And if so, are there any best practices to consider?
So the closing process is only done once for any particular 1 year that is open. But after a year is closed, you're allowed to go back and reopen that year if you need to. So from that perspective, I think it's possible to close it more than once. If you were to reopen it, make adjustments, and then close it again. So I'd answer yes to that question. You can.
Great, thank you. Another question that's come in is, if I am on GP 18.4, do I need to upgrade to 18.6 to get the year-end update, or can that be installed in my current version?
Yes, you will need to update to 18.6 to get the year-end update. You must be on the modern life cycle, and you must apply one of the updates that's provided in the calendar year to stay on the modern life cycle. So yes, you must upgrade it 18.6. Reach out to your customer account manager. We can help you with that process to get the update done for you and install your updates at the same time.
Perfect, thank you. Let's see, what other questions do we have here? What if our IT staff does not have the resources or the time to assist with year end?
Good question. So we have a team of engineers that can help with the year-end process. We can take it from cradle to grave, meaning we can do the updates for you and install the year-end process as well. We can also guide your IT or a member of our IT if you'd like to have to ensure that the process is done well. We have hundreds of GP customers, so we have the opportunity of doing it over and over again. And we can rely on that history and experience. So we can help you do that as efficiently as possible. And we can do the thing from cradle to grave if you need us to.
Thank you, Jeff. Let's see here, another question. Can we close the subledgers one day and the GL another day?
Absolutely. Good question. In fact, typically clients will close their subledgers first. Very common for, say, accounts payable to close 1 or 2 days into the next period, and in 1 or 2 days into the next year to prevent anybody from posting back to that prior year. And so in the steps that were outlined in this presentation, you'll see how we methodically went through all the subledger flows first, closing them before we got to our general ledger to close our general ledger. So the answer is yes, you can close them independently before you close the general ledger.
Okay. Let's see if there's any other questions here. Looks like one more here. What if we need to process our first payroll in January before printing W-2s?
Good question. So the steps outlined here require that you do the installation of the 2024 updates or the year-end 2023 updates, excuse me, for payroll, plus your tax tables for 2024 first before you do your first payroll run. Now, you can produce the W-2s after you close the year for the previous year. So the best practice is typically go through the steps in doing the closing before you do the first payroll run. Ensure that you've installed the new tax tables for 2024 before you do the first payroll run. And then you'll be fine to produce those 1099s, those W-2s in other forms whenever you need to.
Thank you, Jeff. I think that was all of the questions in our questions box. So I think you did a great job explaining everything. Not many questions today.
Well, again, this presentation will be available to you online, so you can download it and go through it again. And then all the links that were provided here are active links that you can click on and review those steps again on the Microsoft customer portal. Again, reach out to your customer account manager if you have any questions about year-end. Or if you'd like us to help you and assist in that year-end process. That's what we're here for, whether that be just an installation of it or to help you through the year-end closing process. I thank you all very much for your time today, and have a pleasant year-end.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll be sending out a copy of the recording and the presentation once that's available. And as Jeff mentioned, please reach out to us for any assistance with year-end closing for Dynamics GP. Have a great afternoon and a wonderful holiday season.